Before we look ahead to World of Warcraft Midnight and things like player housing, it's a good time to reflect on the war within as the expansion comes to an end. There's a lot I genuinely liked here, especially the core gameplay, and definitely things I didn't love as much. The story in particular feels a bit all over the place at times. This marked an interesting point for World of Warcraft. The War Within was the start of a new World Soul saga, and it really needed to assure us that this saga is one worthy of investing in and that Blizzard have learnt from past mistakes. Overall, I think the War Within delivers, at least on the gameplay side. I consider this on the more positive end of modern WoW expansions, but I do have criticisms as well that I'll get into.
It's been too long, old friend.
Despite being over 20 years into World of Warcraft, the War Within lays new foundations and systems for the game going forward, like warbands, hero talents and delves, really changing the landscape of WoW going forward.
Smell that? It's treasure. I know it. We're close.
Looking ahead to the next expansion, Midnight, I think we're at the point where all these new stacking systems are having a compounding effect and very much changing the feel of the modern version of World of Warcraft for the better.
I'm the last boss you'll ever see!
So when the War Within launched, I thought it had a strong opening. Our antagonist Zalatav and the Nerubians destroy our beloved Dalaran, while we're trying to save whoever we can. Bold way to kick the expansion off.
Drenden's been dead for years.
Zalatav messing with Valeria in particular really landed for me. At least this part of the story actually felt like proper Warcraft, especially with a heavy Nerubian presence. After that, we crash land on the Isle of Dawn, make our way through its 4 zones, and we end up assisting the Earthen Dwarves. Speaking of, they're a new playable race, and I ended up leveling one up entirely through exploring zones, thanks to their racial bonus. And I gotta admit, it was quite fun. It was a chill, unique experience. And that journey was complemented by the new Warband system that helps you manage your all characters. I really like that a lot more achievements and reputations are shared across characters now. But a good way through helping the Earthen Dwarves, this is where I feel the story starts to fizzle out a bit. It never quite manages to maintain that strong opening momentum, slowing right down as we bounce between helping the Earthen and accompanying Anduin on his journey to work through his personal baggage following the events in the Shadowlands.
No, I can't. There must be another way.
I've got to be honest, a lot of this felt a bit on the soft side for Warcraft. Despite being at war with the Nerubians, the tone often feels surprisingly gentle. You can really feel the shifts in writing style here, and it's clear the game is being written by very different voices, and arguably for a very different target audience than World of Warcraft stuff.
No.
The first major content patch was Undermined, and I've got to admit I really enjoyed this one. It's probably my favourite WoW patch in a long while, and it even pulled me back into raiding.
This is my town.
Undermined is a jam-packed underground goblin city, complete with its own infrastructure and roads. It's surprisingly atmospheric, helped massively by that jazzy big city soundtrack. It really sells the place as a full-blown capitalist hellscape with Gallywix running the show.
Your vacation request is
not ready.
denied. Also, you're fired for asking.
That said, it doesn't do much for the War Within's overarching story. Zalatav shows up to have the goblins repair her Dark Heart device, only for it to end up stalling by the Ethereals anyway. Ultimately, Undermined is far more of a self-contained story focused on goblin culture, politics, and building a rebellion to overthrow Gallywix.
Let's get to work.
And I think that's part of the reason this has turned out so well. The developers are 100% committed to the goblin theme. It's all about goblins. That clear focus makes this patch feel confident and cohesive in a way the main expansion story sometimes isn't. Before we get into the next big patch, if you love RPGs, consider subscribing to Peter Bytes or giving the video a like. I'm a bit of an indie game developer who covers RPGs, and I'm replaying the whole Final Fantasy series while ranking them. Thank you.
Now, let's finish this.
The second major patch, Ghosts of Koresh, personally felt a bit underwhelming compared to Undermined. It still delivered when it came to raid bosses, but overall it didn't hit the same highs. We go to the shattered homeworld of the Ethereals and team up with Zalatav to stop a big bad void lord, Dimensius.
I cannot believe you would partner with her.
So yeah, we're now Zalatav's best friend. Let's recap. She destroyed Dalaran, manipulated the Nerubians into war, psychologically torments Illyria and others, and is basically pure evil. And yet, we're forced to work with her because apparently that's the only way to stop Dimensius.
I think she's still angry at me about Dalaran.
From the player perspective, it's a bit frustrating and weird. I love Zal, but she even mocks us the entire journey through Karesh.
Sharp as a blade, aren't you?
It's so obvious that she's planning to betray us that you think the game is setting up some clever twist, some big payoff. But no, she does exactly what you expect, betrays us, claims Dimensius' powers for herself, and walks off, leaving the stage set for the Midnight expansion.
Oh, she sounds trusting.
Being a destroyed world, Karesh wasn't super exciting, but over time it grew on me a little. Just exploring the shattered world, hunting for collectibles and treasures, and taking in the atmosphere reminded me a bit of Outland. And since the Burning Crusade is my personal favourite expansion, getting to see more of the ethereals, their ecodomes, and their lore was something I was really looking forward to. One of the more interesting mechanics here is these phase shifting devices letting you toggle between two realities. Some things only appear in one or the other reality. It's a cool idea and a neat visual effect, but I've got to admit it could be a bit frustrating at times.
We have a lot of work to do.
While there has only been 2 major content patches, the WoW Within has delivered a consistent stream of smaller updates, events and story beats. There's often something new to do. It's a far cry from Missa Pandaria, where there was over an entire year between any new content. That was insane. One small patch story I really liked had you gathering the leftovers of Dalaran, holding a sort of funeral, and there's even a moment where you encounter a mirror image of Kel'Thuzad from his Kirin Tor days.
True power can only come from sacrifice.
Kel'Thuzad was one of my favourite characters back in the day, so I really appreciated these little nostalgia callbacks. Moments like that make the smaller updates feel meaningful and keep the world alive between major patches. Looking back at the other regions, I quite like the Isle of Dawn. It's got a really nice ambience that I think most players won't even notice when they're racing to endgame at breakneck speeds. I wasn't super into the underground ringing deeps, it felt a little bland, but the best thing about it was the Kobold faction.
It's not junk, it's treasure.
Hallowfall has a giant crystal in the distance and a neat dynamic element. Every hour on the hour, the crystal turns dark, completely changing the tones and aesthetics of the zone, and certain monsters only come out at this point. Pretty awesome. Then there's Ashkahet, where you can get some gorgeous vistas of the Nerubian kingdom in the distance. Looking back, the city would have felt even more massive and dangerous if we weren't flying around at those breakneck speeds, but I love the Nerubian culture, lore, and skittering dark purple atmosphere that really stands out.
Fascinating.
Now let's rank them. Okay, so for my personal favourites, I'd rank them like this. Undermined at the top. I just love how jam-packed it is, and the attention to detail with the goblin stuff is absolutely incredible. Ashkahet is my second favourite, probably a surprising choice for most, but I love the Nerubian lore, ties to early Warcraft, the vistas, and the dark atmosphere. For number 3 slot, Isle of Dawn is a close contender, but I'm going to say Hallowfall. I think the dynamic element with its crystal changing between light and dark modes makes for aesthetically a very unique zone. And to extend on that, while you're leveling through these regions, you've got that new hero talent system. Basically, every class specialization gets to choose from 2 hero talent trees. You get a talent point when you level up, it feels like you're progressing, and while you do eventually completely fill out that talent tree, you still get to make meaningful choices. Sick as hell.
Nicely done.
The thing is, the quality of your hero talents can feel like pure luck. Some are incredible, like the Death Knight's Rider of the Apocalypse, which lets you summon the Horseman of Apocalypse and even use your mount in combat. Others are a bit underwhelming, for example the Hunter's Dark Ranger talent and its Black Arrow skill. The Hunter talent trees have been reworked multiple times since the expansion launched, and now they're in a much better place. Overall, I think hero talents are a fantastic, innovative system. They add layers of RPG-style customization and really build on the foundations of modern WoW, giving players more meaningful choices going forward.
Fantastic!
One big new reason to get out into the world in the WoW Within are delves. These are basically small self-contained dungeons designed primarily for solo players, though you can also bring a small group with difficulty scaling to the number of players. You get an NPC companion to assist you, and you can level them up, spec them into different roles, and unlock abilities. This time around we had Bran Bronzebeard.
That's the sound of adventure calling our name!
The delve system really grew on me. They can be challenging, offering up to 11 tiers of difficulty, with harder delves giving better rewards, including unique seasonal items. I wish more MMOs had challenging content for solo players like this. This is exactly what I've been asking for. I find delves are a good complement to other forms of content like Mythic Plus dungeons, for filling in gaps in your equipment or letting you further upgrade your gear with the crests you earn. You can't get the very best gear in the game, but you can go far and it's really satisfying. After a while, delves just clicked. I really enjoy them as an alternative form of progression, and I run them quite regular. What really keeps delves fresh is the variety and seasonal twists. Each delve location has variations, and every season changes the mechanics. For example, themed packs of monsters can invade a delve, and that unlocks extra rewards at the end of the delve. These packs are often thematic to the world's current events, like invading ethereals from Koresh. And I really like that there's optional super bosses for those looking for a real challenge.
All that's under mine belongs to me, the Underpig.
I consider the delve system a success, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Midnight is going to expand on the already promising system with labyrinths, which are larger and more advanced delves.
Ain't that a kick in the head? Oh.
So I got quite into mythic dungeons this expansion, basically dungeons with increasing difficulty levels, and if you complete them in par times you'll get keys to higher difficulty dungeons. I don't think any of the dungeons completely blew me away this time. I want to say I like the Dawnbreaker, which starts on an airship and you've got to fly around, but it's really janky, to the point I can't recommend it. I quite like the aesthetics of the Nerubian dungeons like Arakara, City of Echoes, and the City of Threads, which does have a unique element. There's a little mini game where you have to follow trails to find hidden targets to progress, but none of the bosses really blew my mind. My favourite might have to be the mega dungeon of Tazavesh, that's the ethereal city.
Feed on the void. Let its darkness fill you.
I'm not a huge fan of seasonal content in MMOs, but here you get a pool of dungeons every season, and they'll include some older dungeons, some of which never had mythic difficulty, so it's pretty cool getting to re-experience them in a new way. I think Mythic Plus is a fantastic system for a small group of players, and it bridges the gap between solo delves and larger scale raids. Only downside, it can really suck trying to get into Mythic Plus groups, especially if you're playing DPS like Hunter, and you run into your fair share of toxic players. That toxicity is intensified by the fact you're working against the clock. Really recommend doing Mythic Plus dungeons with a group of friends or your guild if possible.
Embrace my rule. Swear your fealty to me.
When it comes to raids, we saw the introduction of Story Mode that lets you solo the raids on easy mode to experience the story. Not something I'd personally ever use, but an option for the subset of players that really want that. And Raid Renown, which you'll rank up by running raids, and you'll be rewarded with little bonuses to damage and healing, little quality of life effects, and cool little rewards like mounts. As someone who likes numbers and leveling or ranking up, I think it's a pretty cool little system and entices you into running the raids again.
You'll never beat me to a good deal.
I delved into raids, it's what World of Warcraft really excels at. I thought Nerubar Palace was pretty good.
Neutralization subroutines activated.
Wonderforge, Omega and the Dimensius fight was pretty epic, probably the best raid fight in the entire expansion. But again, my personal favourite has got to be the Liberation of Undermined. I loved so many bosses here, Vexy and the Gear Grinders with a little biker gang, they were just brilliant. Cauldron of Carnage was also fun. You're stuck in an arena with a mecha dinosaur and a giant gorilla facing off against each other. And then there's Sprocketmonger Lock and Stock, which honestly felt like something straight out of Crash Bandicoot. Finally, it was incredibly satisfying to delete the gluttonous Gallywix from the Warcraft universe once and for all.
Let's get out of here.
And a new system introduced during the expansion that might help with raids is the single button assistant. This lets players do their combat rotations with a single button at the cost of a slower global cooldown, resulting in about 20 to 30% less damage. Not something I would use, but I can see it being good for people when you're on a raid boss mechanic you're struggling with. Swapping to this would then let you focus on the fight rather than your abilities.
Catch you on the flip side.
So yeah, I quite like my time with The War Within. It couldn't hold my interest for more than a few months at a time, but it did keep me coming back for more throughout. While I'd love to do Mythic raiding, my real bread and butter was Mythic plus Dungeons, complemented nicely by a bit of raiding and plenty of solo delves. I think there's a really satisfying endgame loop here when all these systems work together, but I admit I'm a little fatigued of the idea of seasons in an RPG. You speed through the raids and content, then you're repeating them, farming them, maybe higher difficulties, and each season your gear kind of resets and you repeat a lot of the stuff you did previous season. Modern World of Warcraft is very seasonally natured at its core now. It makes the game feel very arcade-like, not what I'd want from my perfect ideal RPG. But I would say one of the big reasons this expansion worked for me was consistency. Yes, there were only 2 major content patches, but there was a constant stream of smaller updates, events, and things to do throughout its lifecycle. That kind of steady pacing really matters, and I hope Blizzard keeps that level of consistency going forward. Ideally with fewer bugs, because the WoW event definitely had its fair share. It feels like those bugs and issues came from the developers really pushing to keep content flowing. My main criticisms sit with the story, characters, and the overall feel of the world. I never fully connected with the storytelling this time round. It feels softer, less distinctly Warcraft, and more clearly aimed at a different target audience. Quite a few game series these days feel a lot softer than they used to. The opening cinematic focused on the Heronir, Anduin, Thrall, and Sargeras' sword. And the WoW event didn't really do that much with these elements. We got a fair bit of Anduin, but it generally feels like parts of the original story plans were changed or cut along the way. That said, gameplay has always been king in World of Warcraft, and the MMO story you create with your friends and guild will always be more memorable than whatever's written in the quest text. As for Midnight, I won't be releasing my review until all the launch content is out, including the Silvermoon raid. So in the meanwhile, check out my thoughts on Guild Wars 2 after 1600 hours, or my Final Fantasy tier list after replaying the entire series. Alright, have a good one.